God's hand has been on the nation of Israel throughout history, and it's still there. Welcome to Freedom Alive. Shalom, or known as peace in Hebrew, was taken from Israel on October 7, 2023. A terrorist army flooded the border from Gaza and began taking hostages and killing Israelis. Antisemitism has increased as the media and so many countries immediately condemned Israel without checking facts. All this for the purpose of wiping all Jews off the maps. But God's hand is still on this tiny nation. Amir Tsarfati is an author and Bible teacher and founder and president of Behold Israel. Amir has lived in Israel his entire life and joins us on this program to share how God is using this tragic war to bring the Jewish population together. I'm thankful to again be joined by our co-host Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel. Matt, it's clear that Satan wants to try and destroy all that God has created while he has the chance. And God's chosen land of Israel is an example. But God made a covenant with that nation, and it's his name and word that's on the line.
You know, the events of October 7, I don't think they'll ever be erased from people's minds, at least those who have looked at what actually has occurred. I've seen a lot of raw footage that I would wish I had never seen before, where people are just brutally killed, raped, dismembered, bodies burnt, just unbelievable. How in the world do you develop that kind of mindset that you would enjoy doing that kind of slaughter to an innocent human being? And what we see and what we'll talk about during Amir's interview is this indoctrination that has been happening for decades and decades among the Palestinian people by the Palestinian Authority in Gaza, by the Hamas and others, to indoctrinate children from very young to hate Jews and to kill them and to believe that killing them would be their ticket to heaven and to paradise. But the Jewish people have been under attack for thousands of years, and this is the most recent attempt to just wipe them off the map. You know, God has a plan, however, for Israel and for the Jewish people, and so it's important that we understand what's happening, why it's happening, and what we can do about it.
We are honored and blessed to be able to bring this episode and this guest to you. We cannot wait, but our Freedom Alert is next.
U.S. Supreme Court frees Christmas from the lemon test. For 51 years, the lemon test has been used by courts to remove religious symbols and displays such as the Ten Commandments, crosses, and nativity scenes from public property. But now, because of Liberty Counsel's unanimous decision at the High Court in Shurtleff versus City of Boston, and later in the Coach Kennedy case, the lemon test is finally dead. Now courts can no longer use this to censor religious expression at Christmas and on other religious holidays. Christians are free to celebrate the birth of Christ on public property and in government spaces. Public school students can wear red and green. Government employees can recognize Jesus in their office decorations, and nativity scenes can freely stand on public property. Make sure you know your rights to celebrate the real reason for the season.
Up next, Matt's interview with Amir Tsarfati.
Well, our very special guest is Amir Tsarfati, and Amir is the founder of Behold Israel. He was raised in Israel in a Jewish family, came to faith in Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, and is a founder of this incredible ministry that provides information, news, and also biblical teachings with regards to Israel. He has been an incredible source of what's happening real time in Israel since October 7, that horrific day when Hamas came to the Kibbutzim in southern Israel, just outside of the Gaza southern border, or the border of Gaza, and slaughtered innocent people that are just beyond description. And so, Amir, I want to welcome you to Freedom Alive. I want to talk about what has happened in Israel. You're close to the ground, and you have lots of information to share. But also, as a Jewish person who's a believer in Yeshua, what is happening around the world? I mean, I think we're shocked, frankly,
Yes.
of the extent of anti-Semitism that's been there, but it's now being manifested. Before we talk about that, welcome to Freedom Alive.
Yes, thank you very much, Matt. Well, thank you for having me, and I think that it's important that we understand that what we go through right now around the world is nothing less than a manifestation of demonic spirit. There is no other way to describe it, but it's a spiritual realm, a demonic attack, a demonic, satanic cloud that is covering the world right now. And it's funny because many of the people that are chanting in the streets stuff like, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, when you stop and ask them which river and what sea, they don't even know what you're talking about. There is a sense of, this is the new thing you need to belong to if you want to be cool. I mean, climate change is nice, sex fluidity is nice. Now let's be pro-Palestinians, and will even be better. And it's very interesting because you see that there is anti-Semitism all around the world that doesn't really need much to happen in order for it to manifest itself. It's very interesting because October 7th began as the most peaceful Shabbat, the last day of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, of Tabernacles, the happiest of all days, because this is the time when we celebrate the conclusion of the reading of the Torah cycle. And it's quite amazing because out of the blue, without any warning, 3,000 terrorists invaded into southern Israel and performed crimes against humanity and a genocide in levels that even the Holocaust did not see. Yeah. The stuff that I was exposed to, I don't think I've seen in any of my research on the Holocaust. I don't think I've seen anything like that. So the sheer evil, the sheer demonic spirit that we've seen, and yet, a few weeks later, people don't even talk about October 7th. For so many people, history begins on October 8th when Israel is responding. And that is so sad, but at the same time not surprising at all. Hating the Jewish people has been the tactic of the enemy from the very get-go, because the enemy knows that if the Jews are there, then his end is around the corner. Jesus cannot come back unless the Jewish people are back in the land, in Jerusalem, looking at him, saying, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. For them not to exist is for him not to return. The enemy doesn't know much besides, I need them out. And he started with Pharaoh, and he continues all the way throughout history with the Amalekites, and then the Philistines, and then all the world empires that tried to destroy us and kill us, all the way to the Third Reich 80 years ago. In 1943, there was no IDF, there was no State of Israel. No one could stand on our behalf and go and destroy the Nazis. But in 2023, there is the State of Israel, there is the IDF, and we are rising up to destroy the enemy. And that's the difference. And people are not used to it. They're used to the Jewish people, going through pogroms, going through persecution, and being those that are helpless and they need the help of the world. And it's not the case anymore. We need the help of God, but we surely don't need the help of the world. We thankfully have our country, have our military, and have our ability to respond to these things. And the world is against it. You don't do that. You do not respond. And by the way, we're following international law, and nothing that we do nowadays is against international law.
For those that are watching, I want you to just ask yourself the question, especially when you're talking to people, and you may use terms like chosen people, God's chosen people, and somebody pushes back on that. Ask them a question. What other people group in world history, has been the target of elimination for thousands of years and still exist? And frankly, not only exist, but have a nation. If you go back to Egypt, it was the Jews that the Pharaoh wanted to eliminate, enslave, and just literally slaughter. Against all odds, God preserved the Jewish people and led them out of the Exodus. And then they come into the Promised Land. And as you said, Amir, it's the Philistines, it's the adversaries there that want to wipe them out. And then you come to Assyria, and then you come to Babylon, and then you go through the history and you come to Rome, and the Romans later wanted to destroy them. And then you come down to more modern times with Nazi Germany wanting to destroy the Jewish people. They're not harming anybody. And then you come to 1947, 1948, and you have all these nations around Israel trying to destroy Israel. Israel survives without a military, without an organized army, against all odds, against these powerful countries, Egypt and Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and others. And then you come to 1967, and it happens again. And you come again now to 2023, and it happens again. How is it that this people group, that frankly we owe today much of what we have in our modern technology, if it weren't for Israel, we wouldn't have much of our daily modern technology that we are blessed with. We wouldn't have cherry tomatoes. We wouldn't have drip irrigation. We wouldn't have some of our cell phone computer technology, you name it. All of it's been invented in Israel in just a few short years that bless us. So why is this animosity against this people? Why is it against this little tiny piece of land in the midst of all this area of the Middle East? And the only answer you can come up with, I think that's logical and rational and certainly biblical, and that is God has a plan for Israel and has had a plan, and for the Jewish people and has a plan, and the enemy, Satan, hates it. And through history, there has been this attempt to wipe them out. And October 7 is just one of those examples. One thing I want to ask you, Amir, when we think about it from our standpoint, you're versed in this because you know, how do people come to the point where they would commit an October 7? How do they burn babies and put them in ovens? How do they crush the heads of children? How do they behead these people? How do they rape wives in front of their husband and children? How do they cut off their arms? How do they gouge out their... How do they do that with glee? How do they come to that position? And the answer that I have, obviously, in addition to being satanic, is that this is an indoctrination that's been going on for decades.
Correct.
What do you see?
I see that from the moment they're born, they are being fed with hatred and with literally their life mission is to kill Jews. That's it. It's very interesting because this is exactly why Golda Meir said, our legendary prime minister in the late 60s, early 70s. She said, well, peace will come to the Middle East when Palestinian mothers will love their children more than they hate the Jews. I mean, literally, I saw the other day a woman who just heard that her son, who was a terrorist, was killed, and she went out to the street and she was so happy. She was happy. She started hugging everyone and she started dancing and singing. It was the best news ever for her son to die because he was going to kill Jews. This is the highest point. That's a religion and culture of death. And they even say that, you love life, we love death. You cherish life, we cherish death. When you have a culture, a society, that death is cherished, that death is sanctified, that death is the ultimate goal, and on the way, kill as many, because the more you kill, the higher you get in heaven, and the more Allah will bless you with. That's it. And it seems to me that it's not anything different than what is going on in the West Bank with the Palestinian Authority. Yeah. It's exactly the same thing. They indoctrinate their children to believe that not a single square inch belongs to us. Everything in this land belongs to them, and therefore we are to be killed or fought or kicked out, because that's it. And when people walk in the street and chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, I mean, this is basically saying Jews must be gone from here. They either has to be annihilated or just go back to wherever they came from. And it's what makes me sad is that people don't even know history.
Yeah.
They don't bother understanding the origin of those Arabs that now call themselves Palestinians. And they don't understand when the Jews returned, why the Jews returned, the legal right of the Jews, even from a political legal standpoint, of the Balfour Declaration, the San Remo Convention. All of that is just gone from their mind. They never heard about it. All they heard is these evil people came, took the land from these poor people, and so we need either to kill them or kick them out. That's it.
Yeah, certainly you have the Bible, but you have the geopolitical issue and the legal issue that the Jews have the right to the land. The Jews were there well before 1947, 1948. Okay. And they said yes to a two-state solution, that there would be one for the Jews and one for the Palestinians. And the Palestinians actually would have had a fairly large section of the land. But the so-called Palestinians, they said no. No if there's a Jew anywhere. And they wanted everything to be called Palestine. And that was 1947, 1948. They rejected it. I just saw Bill Clinton the other day, and he was talking to an audience, and this happened in 2000 after the November election, before he transitioned out. He tried, as you remember, to do a two-state solution, and he said he almost killed himself to try to do this two-state solution. He said, under that proposal, the Palestinian Authority had all of Gaza and 96 to 97% of the so-called West Bank, and they said no.
Absolutely.
And they walked away from that deal. And the reason why they walked away from that deal, I believe, is what Khalid Abu Tuami told me when he talked to Yasser Arafat, is that they had no mandate to be able to accept a deal like that, because they've indoctrinated their people to hate Jews, to kill Jews. If they accept anything less than 100%, they'll be killed. And 100% is everything is Palestine and no Jews. That's
exactly
their only bottom line. All of it Palestine and no Jews.
And even when Arafat entered and he had to explain how come he signed any deal with Israel, he said to the people in Arabic, don't worry, this is like the Hudaybiyah agreement. And a lot of people don't know what Hudaybiyah is all about, but this is an agreement where he basically signed with a tribe and later on immediately killed them. Yep. Basically, it's just a tactical thing to sign it, but we don't really mean it. And at the moment we have a chance, we're going to kill them. That's it. That's what it's all about. The funny thing is, the world called this part of the land Palestine since Adrian renamed it following the Jewish revolt, the second revolt. He was so angry that he named it after the Old Testament foes of Israel, the Philistines. So even that name has nothing to do with the Arabs. It has to do with the history of Israel. But the interesting thing is, throughout the 1920s and 30s and even the 40s, the Jews are the ones that call themselves Palestinians, and the Arabs call themselves Arabs. Yeah. That's how it was. In the partition plan was Jewish and Arab state. Once we changed the name to Israel, they gladly took the name Palestinian, because if they say Arabs, that means they came from Arabia. That means they have to go back to Arabia. If we hold on to a name Palestine, that still connects us to this piece of land that Adrian called Palestine. So it's very interesting how they changed their tactics just so they can keep the struggle over this piece of land. But make no mistakes, a lot of us are calling the Hamas Nazis right now, because what they did was nothing less heinous than what the Nazis did. B, because they are indoctrinated according to the Nazi. We found Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf book in Arabic in their houses. They were very interested in it. That they studied from it, and I think that everything they did is because they truly believed that killing the Jew is the right thing, that burning the Jew is the right thing. They asked them, so why did you kill the children? And they said it's because the children will grow up and be soldiers. So why did you rape women and kill them? Because the women will give birth and then they will become soldiers. You see that they always have answers to why don't we want them to get to the age of 18 and be able to defend their land. So that's it. And it's very sad to see it because it's barbaric and deceptive.
And, you know, when people say, well, the innocent Palestinians in Gaza, the people in Gaza elected Hamas in 2006. The people in Gaza knew that these tunnels were being done because there's, 311 miles, 500 kilometers of tunnels. You had to have known that these tunnels were being built. There's a lot of construction that would have been necessary to build these elaborate underground tunnels. And these tunnels were under schools or populated places, including under hospitals.
Correct. And
So-
that's, yeah, you're right. That's it. These people literally became the human shields by choice, by the way. Don't get me wrong. They gladly did that. Human shields of the largest terror camp or terror base on planet Earth. There is no bigger terror base anywhere else on planet Earth. Israel is basically surrounded by the largest terrorist organization in the world, Hezbollah, and situated next to the largest terror base in the world, which is Gaza Strip. And this is what we have to deal with. It's people that are dedicated to store as much weapon as possible and dig as many tunnels as possible and prepare themselves as best as they can to destroy and kill Jews. That's it. This is their life mission. They will not eat. They will not educate their children. They will not take care of their own families. But they will kill the Jews. That's their whole thing. I truly lament the fact that we live in a world in 2023 where I don't feel safe in most of Western Europe and America and Arab countries. Who would imagine that we get to that point? But I also want to say that it's important not to fall into conspiracy theories. It's important to keep our feet on the ground and stay close to scriptures and only scriptures, because only the word of truth can lead you to all truth.
Very well said. And of course, one of the ways to get that information, both biblically and geopolitically and historically accurate and timely, is to follow you on social media, particularly your Telegram. You have about 500,000 followers on that channel, and that's just one of many. I encourage people to go to the website that's on the screen, Behold Israel, which is the ministry where you can find not only resources, but also these other social media contacts as well to stay in touch with Amir. So our guest is Amir Tsarfati, and a great friend of all of us here around the world that are watching, and a great friend of Israel. I encourage you to go to the website that's on the screen, and you can learn more about Behold Israel and Amir's ministry there. And maybe you want to have him come and speak and do the weekend through Revelation or many other programs that he does and speaks around the world. So thank you, Amir, for joining us on Freedom Alive.
Matt, it's really clear that hating and eliminating Jewish people has been a tactic of the enemy from the beginning.
Yeah, for thousands of years. You go back to Egypt with the pharaohs, and they wanted to eliminate the Jewish people. Then you come out of that with the Exodus. God prevailed over the most powerful nation on the planet. And then you come to Assyria, and you come to the Persian kingdom, Babylon before that, Rome, the Nazi regime with Adolf Hitler. And then now what we see happening with October 7, there was that attack on the Jewish people. And it had been in a process for many decades where they made this plan to kill the Jewish people, to take over Israel. And they've had this elaborate system in Gaza that Hamas created underground with these tunnel systems and amassing with, by the way, American taxpayer humanitarian aid funding and other European funding under humanitarian aid money that they use to build that underground infrastructure and buy weapons so that they could ultimately unleash those against the Jewish people and rename Israel to Palestine and move out all the Jews. That was what was behind October 7. And Hamas anticipated that October 7 would be so outrageous, which it was, that Israel would have no choice but to respond. When they responded, coming into Gaza, then the narrative would be that they're attacking civilian populations, including schools and hospitals, because underground is where Hamas put their headquarters, under these hospitals and schools and mosques, and even a Boy Scout location where they had underground rocket launchers. They did that intentionally, using these civilians as human shields.
So that we can continue to bring the truth to people at home, let's talk again about Behold Israel, because it really is a remarkable place where folks can see what's really happening versus what the mainstream media constantly talks about.
Well, you know, I've always said that everything comes together in Israel for me. And so when we take people to Israel, and we're going to return to Israel with the group that we were going to be with in October, November of 2023, we're going to go back and we'll have an amazing time. But everything comes together biblically because the Bible just comes to life. But geopolitically and historically, it all comes together in that little tiny place on earth, the land called Israel. And so it is the epicenter of God's plan and purpose. This is where the scriptures were written, the prophets preached, the kings ruled, Jesus was born, that's where he lived, this is where he's returning. This is the special place, for whatever reason, that God chose historically as the land and the people through whom the Messiah would be born.
I just want to say, at Good Life 45, we've been very blessed and very committed to really sharing the truth about what's happening in Israel with so many programs. Not just this Freedom Alive program, but throughout the day on our lineup, if you're watching, we have many, many programs, national ministries that are focused on this issue. And we really are a place where you can keep up with this and understand the real story of what's happening. So I just want to reinforce that for a minute for those at home. In closing, remember Galatians 5, verse 1, which says, "It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery." Our freedom is a gift from our Creator. We must never forget that and always protect it. So join us here next time where you'll hear victories as well as ways you can stand up for your priceless freedom. Join us again for Freedom Alive.